I will call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able and join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up is public comment. Does anyone wish to speak on something not on tonight's agenda? It is on tonight's agenda, and so I can move it up, but I just have two things I want to do beforehand, if that's okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I would like to read into the record when you allow me to.
Sure, that's fine. All right. Mr. Lynch, we have recognition tonight.
We do. I'd like to call Mr. Josh Young from the class of 2019 Middleborough High School down to the table, if you would, Josh. Recognize the name. Josh is the son of our chair, Rich Young. I'd like to announce that Josh was recently in the news for having been recognized as a Student Athlete of the Year by the MIAA. The Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association Student Athlete of the Month Award is presented on a monthly basis to one male and one female student athlete in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who display excellence in the areas of academics, athletics, and community service. Students in grades 9 to 12 who attend MIA member schools are eligible to receive the award. Monthly award recipients receive a certificate of recognition and are featured on www.miaa.net and are honored at the MIAA Awards Recognition Banquet. Nominations for the award may be submitted by principals, athletic directors, teachers, coaches, guidance counselors, or other school administrators. And they must be received by the last month, and it goes on to say that it's an honor award that is giving, again, to one male and one female student in the entire Commonwealth each month. And for the month of April, Olivia Hicks from Uxbridge, Mass., where my wife is from, and Josh Young from Middleborough High School won the award. So congratulations, Josh. And I know you were nominated by your basketball coach, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. If you have any words you'd like to share, you're welcome to it, but it's really just a congratulations, and we're honored that you were honored.
Thank you. I don't have anything else to say.
Joe, can you tell the committee a little about the other part? I think since your sophomore year, you've been the MIA ambassador for Middleborough?
Oh, yes. Mr. Sylvia selected one senior, one junior, and one sophomore who play sports in the school, and they represent Middleborough High School at a summit that happens, I think I don't know how often it is, but they are the student ambassadors for MIAA for their district and the school.
And you go there, and you had that since sophomore year? Or junior?
Junior year.
Okay. So you've done it for 2 years for us, so we appreciate that.
And Josh is off to UNH in the fall.
Yes, he is. So. Does anybody have any questions for Josh? Mr. Oakley.
How's it going, Josh?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good, thanks. That sounds like a pretty high honor, and I wondered if you had any advice for any of your fellow student athletes. What is it that you think that you did that led to getting that honor?
I mean, I don't really think that I did anything special, but I mean, just do the little things, like just try to help out as much as you can, really, and like do your best in sports. I mean, that's the other part.
Chair, I always love to hear people who do really good things and really great things when they say, I didn't really do anything special. It's just kind of
Things that you do naturally day to day that you do, whether it's achieving in sports or achieving in the school or helping. When you say you didn't do anything special, that is special. And I think you should be proud of it. Rich, I mean, no, you must be proud of it because I think it's a wonderful recognition because it's about not just sports, it's about everything that you do. It's a great recognition, and I'm proud as a Middleborough School Committee member that we have someone who has been recognized this year. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to congratulate you. Having followed this award for a long time, there are over 300 schools in the Commonwealth that are part of the MIAA, and they only pick 2 students a month. And it's, so 24 kids a year, and you're one of those. So hold your head high. That's an amazing award. You represent Middleborough well, and thank you for doing all that you do.
Josh, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day.
No problem.
We very much appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Mr.
Sure.
Chair, that's a September through April award, so it's really only 8 months. So 16 athletes in the Commonwealth each year, so congratulations again.
And we should add that the keynote speaker who was also honored that night was Andre Tippett for the New England Patriots, because he does all the work with the high schools for the Patriots, and so they reached out. So it's fun to be in that honor with Andre Tippett, so a Hall of Famer. Next up is our discussion items. Owen has finished his service. Does any member of the school committee have anything for update today? Seeing no one. Mr. Catino, I'll put you up. And Mr. Catino, I will say, I know my son enjoyed your class this past year.
Well, he actually, I think, the seniors, because the AP test, and then it's like, we only had 2 days the week after that, and then they were done, pretty much.
Yeah.
So they didn't get to do any of the fun stuff. So now the 5 students that I have left, we did what I call a consumer advocacy lab, and we test claims that had been made against the M&M Mars Company and the M&M's candy. So they do a taste test, they do a weight test on bags, and we do a color test based on the mix of the colors and that sort of stuff. So I had a good time with that. And then they learn the ANOVA test, and we fly paper airplanes in the lobby and try to find out which model flies the furthest doing paper airplanes in the ANOVA test. So it kind of has like some fun ways to kind of test stuff out. I've been considering things for the CP stats class for next year. Next year we only have one AP stats section running, and so I was given first option on it, but I told the department chair to let Mr. Cutler do it, because there's a lot that goes into getting prepared for an AP class, and with my health up and down, it's like, let's let somebody else take that. Plus, we're trying to get one additional teacher up and running for the AP, so it's always good to have more than 2 that can actually teach it, just in case. So, but yeah, he's missed some of the fun stuff, but Josh was a great student, so well-deserved award for him. But he's been out since the beginning of June, so. and there's only 4 days left for us, so we're kind of looking forward to chilling for the summer, and I got to fix the roof on my garage, so that's about it. That's my summer plan.
All right.
Anyway, it was nice to have it to be pretty much wrapped up with the negotiations, except for one more issue. So we had the one meeting. Can't figure out why we wouldn't be able to have that wrapped up, and then we can move on to the ESP contract.
As Mr. Catino says, we pretty much finished all our work with the union contract. We have one last piece to go, fix up some language, because that will occur after school's out. The union won't get a chance to ratify the contract till they come back, and so that'll be, that's sort of the same scenario we ran into last time 3 years ago. We finished up right as school ended, and then had the union ratify and came back, so.
Yeah, it seems to, over the last few years, ratifying the first day of the year seems to be the norm. I've not seen it work any other way. Has we ever finished it beforehand? I don't know. Not since I've been here. We've always had the ratification vote the first day back, so. But that's all right. It's done and, or mostly done.
Exactly.
Well, it's just a matter of tightening up the language now, so. Anybody have any questions?
No, but thank you, Mr. Catino.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Lynch says I'm going to turn it over to you, superintendent report. Would it make sense to go with?
Certainly.
So, Mr. Martin, I'll actually come up now. We'll do that, and I'll give you a chance to speak.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the school committee. And so I have a communication I would like to enter into the record, if I may, and then I will have written copies, of correspondence left for every member of the committee. So if I may, it reads as follows, and it's stated today, and it's a letter addressed to you, Mr. Young, as chair of the school committee, and reads as follows. Dear Mr. Young, first and foremost, I am writing to you today to express how deeply saddened we are regarding the decision by the Middleborough Public Schools to terminate our before and after school program after 18 successful years. We are disappointed by the decision and by the procurement process as a whole, which has resulted in the contract being awarded to an out-of-town for-profit company. The future partnership seemed to be, the future of our partnership seemed to be in doubt following a meeting between YMCA staff, including myself, Superintendent Lynch, and you, Mr. Young, back on February 9th of 2018, regarding a hesitation in the contract renewal process for our before and after school program. The issue at hand was an increased demand for rent to be paid to the school. Despite an uneasy tone to the meeting, the Y was awarded a one-year contract extension on the program shortly thereafter, contingent on an increase in rent, allowing us to continue doing what we do best, and that is to serve children and families. Following the contract renewal, we were still unsure of our status as the school-age vendor after the year was over. Superintendent Lynch later stated that at a school committee meeting that preceded the present procurement process, that he had nothing against the Y and was simply exploring other options as part of his goals. It is difficult to reconcile these events and comments along with our successful 18-year record with the very low evaluation score that we received in the process. We've been fortunate enough to work with children and families in the before and after school program in Middleborough since 2001, and we have considered it a privilege for every one of those 18 years. We have earned the trust and support of the Middleborough community since the Y was established here in 1913, a feat that does not happen overnight. With that in mind, I am here today to make a commitment to the children and families of the Middleborough community by continuing to provide before and after school program headquartered at our YMCA. We have seen and heard commentary throughout the procurement process that impugn the integrity of our YMCA, our programs, our staff at the hands of the evaluation process. The Y has been painted as a low-quality, high-cost provider. This portrayal is simply inaccurate and misleading to the families in the community who have relied on the Y for generations. Today, I feel compelled and obligated to respond to this negative characterization of our institution. This morning, I placed a certified letter to the Superintendent Lynch in the mail that requests information regarding the procurement process and the evaluation process via the Freedom of Information Act. I expect a timely and thorough response from the school district. Internally, our intent is to leverage independent resources to conduct an exhaustive evaluation of our proposal and the information we obtain. Based on everything that we know from parent surveys, school administrators, our accreditors, and a 47-year history of writing proposals for public and private contracts, it is inconceivable to us that the Old Colony Y would receive such a score of 42. Our expertise in the area of youth development and family engagement is well documented. Our staff are trained at the highest level, and our programs are held to the highest standards and quality. Furthermore, the additional value the Y offers the district is unmatched in regards to training, summer programs, and camp scholarships, and wraparound supports that other organizations simply cannot provide. With that in mind, I also take grave exception with the implication that the Y is not affordable. In fact, providing quality, affordable childcare for working families in Middleborough is core to our mission. Currently, the average cost, and these are current data, the average cost to families in the program, in our program, are as follows. We have 108 families that pay an average $67 a week. 37 families use vouchers and pay $27 per week. 9 families receive YMCA scholarships funded by our annual campaign and pay a deeply discounted rate or nothing at all. 7 families involve with DCF paid $0 per week and receive additional case management and support via specialized Y staff through our family support program. The Oak Colony Y holds a master contract with EEC to provide family support to families in our care. And lastly, there are 3 families that use basic slots and pay $26 per week. Furthermore, for the last year, at the insistence of the district, the Y has been paying rent in the amount of $50,000, a number we propose to raise to $60,000 for the next 3 years. Additionally, the Y offers free memberships to every family enrolled in the program, and our extensive slate of auditable in-kind services is valued at more than $600,000, a figure that was disregarded by the community because those dollars did not benefit the school as much as they benefited the families directly. I also have serious doubts about the financial commitments made by Champions, the awarded vendor. In our experience of operating 44 child care sites and school-age sites throughout southeastern Mass, paying that much in rent to any school would severely limit the funds available for quality staff and programming. Unless there was an overstatement of enrollment, the numbers simply do not add up, and I would encourage you to closely monitor the financial expectations. They don't make sense to us. Even more troubling is the notion, the idea that we understand of a signing bonus for the district, which simply, to us, reads more like a pay-to-play arrangement of some sort. As a for-profit company, Champion is in the business of their bottom line. It is difficult to believe that the evaluation criteria places such emphasis on financial resources coming back to the school district off the backs of hard-working parents. But that is the only assumption that we can feasibly make. At the Y, we are driven by the core values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, and we challenge ourselves and our community every day to live by those values. I've seen little evidence that this procurement process has been based on any of these values. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing back from you and continuing this dialogue. I have copies of this communication as well as the registered certified letter that was mailed this morning to the superintendent's office. And before I leave, Sue Okalita, the director of our Middleborough Y, has a statement she'd like to make of an example that we experienced just today.
Okay. Can they hear me from here? Or should I move that on? Okay, I didn't. Again, my name's Sue Okalita. I'm the director at the YMCA, and our school, one of our school-age directors, as well as our associate exec, received a phone call today from a grandparent who currently has custody of her granddaughter, and this child has been in our program since preschool. She's finished in 5th grade, going into the middle school, and this child is on a state slot, and she is very concerned about her well-being and her stability because it's very hard for her child to make any types of changes. And this grandmother called Champions, and they were not very helpful to her. They basically could not give her any answers, and she was very upset, and she ended up hanging up the phone on them. So we reassured her that we will be there for her and her family. So that's just one phone call that we've had so far. So just thought I'd pass it along, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, and I'll leave copies of the communication.
Thank you. Ask you a question. In your letter and in your statement, you made the comment that we have seen and heard commentary throughout this procurement process that impugn the integrity of the Y. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, we actually, I believe it was in either a Facebook posting or in another social media, somehow with the school committee,
Can I ask who?
where we based that comment that I made.
Can I ask who?
Which member?
Which member? Mr. Oak?
I said that led you to believe that I was impugning the why.
Well, I don't have that particular,
I think it would be fair that you would have that if you're suggesting that I did something
well, I would suggest you
negative.
just simply read it and
But
it speaks
I-
for itself, so.
You said you've heard and seen commentary throughout this process. And what you're telling me is, in one occasion on Mr. Oakley's Facebook. So how is that throughout this process?
Oh, I think we've been in situations in different parts of the community, in different parts of the educational community, where we got some sense that something was going on that just wasn't comfortable.
Sure. Sure.
So, back probably.
Why don't you go to the microphone, sir?
Yeah. I want to say back probably in January, we had a member talk to one of our staff that, and this person is involved in the PTA and heard that champions would be coming in. Also, we heard from a staff member, actually she is, she's an aide in the school, I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but there was a staff meeting at one of the schools, and it got back to her that there were going to be changes, and they would be happy with it, and it would be another organization that would be coming in. So there was talk throughout, you know, we had here bits and pieces that got back to us, that things were happening behind the scenes.
Okay, I mean, you know, this process has gone on for over a year, as you guys said. It started in February, when we had a conversation. We made it a part of the superintendent's goals. We set up the RFP. You were given the RFP and took a look at it. The money and the amount of money that people gave us did not factor in at all, as we said at the last meeting, on the scores that were given for the proposals themselves. The proposals were done after the interviews that we had with everybody. They were done solely on that, and then we took a look at the money. The money was, as you know, the money was set in a separate communication. We never saw the money until after we had met with all the groups and reviewed the proposals. So what money and what factoring of money had was not part of the initial discussion of numerical value.
Well, I think we'll end up seeing all that information once we get it, so.
Right, well, I'm telling you what it is,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to know
Yeah.
that it has nothing to do with that. The second piece is Champion came in at a less of a price tag than you did for the program, and also less of a percentage raise over the 3-year period in time to the families in Middleborough. So those were primarily the factors that came in.
There are things that happen officially, there are things that happen unofficially, and our intent is to try and get a better sense of what perhaps happened unofficially through this process.
There's nothing that happened unofficially through this process, because you were part of the process and sat through the interviews.
Well, maybe I should be more clear.
Sure.
Maybe unofficial isn't the word. Maybe what happens in public or what happens in private might be a better way.
And again, this part I want to make very clear, as you know, those are open meetings. Anyone could have attended the meetings. They were posted. They're posted in the notice. So I don't want anyone to sit here and to try to claim there's some sort of private piece go on. I get you're angry that you didn't win the proposal.
Oh, we're not angry.
Well-
We're just insulted that the WISE reputation would be impugned in this way.
And again,
So-
I asked you how the WISE, Vinny, I asked you how the WISE reputation was impugned, and you told me about one instant with a school committee member, and you know, it says throughout the process, so I'm going to take offense to that.
In my communication, I believe I used the words that we were basically pictured as low quality, high price.
And again,
I view as
who
impugning our reputation.
pictured you as low quality and high price? Because I got to tell you, one of the things that I really tried to make sure of, Vinnie, when we presented to the whole committee, is I went over and presented to the committee. I really tried to present to committee. The committee went forth with champions. So I presented with the committee about champions proposals more than anything else. I didn't, we've always had a good relationship with you. We've always tried to maintain a good relationship with you. And I'm not out to hurt the Y, nor would I do anything to hurt the Y. And so in my presentation to the committee at the last meeting, I really made sure that we weren't, I didn't want to fall on the Y or, hurt the Y in any way, shape, or form. I'm just presenting the facts and I'm presenting the champion piece.
Well, we've asked under Freedom of Information for copies of all the documents, and then we're going to do our own internal evaluation, and then we'll decide where.
That's fine. I mean, anyone can do that.
That's fine.
Mr. Chair, I just wondered if I could read aloud for everyone the Facebook post in mention.
Well, the only thing, Rich, is I would make sure that it's the Facebook post that he's talking about.
There was only one.
Okay.
So this is from me to a couple people that had posted on some of the parents of groups.
Hold on, Mr. Oakley, what date was that posted on?
I'm reading from a copy from my notepad. I didn't find
But
the
if-
specific post.
But if I recall, this was after the process.
It was.
It's after the, okay.
Yep. Some parents were asking questions about what had happened, and so I tried
It was probably on Friday.
Last Friday.
Okay.
It was probably on Friday.
Yep. So, hi, I am a member of the school committee that voted on this. I speak for myself only, not the committee. The district put out a request for proposals and got 4 submissions, including the YMCA. The bid process kept all monetary considerations sealed until after the programmatic quality and logistical details had been evaluated and scored by the budget team, plus some administrators, plus principals. Once the quality of the program had been scored, then the monetary envelopes were opened and both cost to parents and revenue to district was reviewed. I was not a voting member of this subcommittee, but I was there and was impressed with the quality first, then money approach that the team took. In the end, the district went with the vendor that scored highest for performance, had the lowest cost to families, and then I said in parentheses, lower than the current program, which is what we were presented, right? And also happened to have the highest revenue to the district. This new vendor, aside from being the highest rated program of the 4, also provided a signing bonus that the school committee will recommend for additional technology purchases for the MEC and HBB and MKG. I was also reassured when the vendor told us that they prefer to hire local people for their programs. After reviewing all the proposals, it was clear that the vendor chosen had the highest quality educational programming at the lowest price for families and at the most advantageous revenue level for the district to help bridge the gap between 21st century education needs and the state's outdated and unfair public education funding model. The vendor has assured us that they have a well-tested plan to be up and running before the start of the new before and after school season. I am sad that the relationship with the YMCA has ended in this sector, and as a valued member of our community, I hope that they will consider bidding for the program going forward. And that was the post. So I would be very curious what part of that is impugning. I thought it was very informative.
Reading that through our culture basically slams the wall of saying that we're at the bottom of the heap.
That's not at all what that says.
That's the way we interpret
Chair?
that.
Yes.
I think at this point, I'm a little bit, my hands haven't been crossed in gripping my fingers as I was sitting here listening to someone say to me, look at me in the face and say that their basis of their entire process is caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, and then accuse us of malfeasance, which was pretty much what you did sitting there. And I'm going to tell you, I personally take offense to that. Because you know what? When someone says, we think you did something wrong throughout this entire process, you can look at everything. I am personally disappointed. That's what I would say to my child. I am disappointed in the way we were just treated in that. I understand you're upset that a process is ending. What was said about Mr. Oakley, which I think was a reiteration of what happened at a meeting, it's exactly what happened. I understand you may not be happy with the way things were ranked. I thought it was, at least a process was done, it was followed, it was all open, the public meetings were there, everything was held in a certain way. People from outside of just school committee members and everyone was there. Everyone had a piece of this process. And for someone to come in and sit there and make an accusation, I tell you, I don't like people making accusations like that because it's wrong. Because when it comes to one thing, I know I'm not getting paid to sit here. I'm not getting paid, because I'm here because I care. I'm not getting paid to sit here, I care. And that's the first and foremost, it's the reason why I'm on this committee. And to turn around and have that happen, I was, you can tell upset, I'm really upset about it.
If I may respond, I chose my words very carefully because I in no way intended to impugn any individual member. Our concern has been about the process.
And I was part of the process by voting it, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we voted to go through this process. We voted to move forward with the process. It was publicly put out there. So, and I was part of one of the meetings in 2018. I was sitting in those meetings too. I understand what was going on. I know what you're saying about a meeting and you raised what you were paying. We are very appreciative of that. But I sat here, I just heard those words and it just went right up one side and down the other when someone says that we are trying to do something nefarious or something. It was just, oh, it just.
I'm sorry that you took it that way. It was not meant that way.
I just, it goes back to, I don't believe that what Mr. Oakley said impugned anybody in any way, shape, or form. I get that you can look at it in a different light, given that you're not getting the contract.
We do, Mr. Young.
And I appreciate that, Vinnie. And I would also say, too, that Brian and I sat through the contract negotiations for last year. I'll be honest with you, I think I did a pretty good job in raising the price because it actually came in less than what you proposed for next year overall. So, I thought we did a good job there. And, all that information is open to you. You can have all that information. You'll get it.
Well, we appreciate that and we look forward to reviewing it.
And I just think that I would say, I do this for a living. I deal with RFPs all the time. And exactly. So, and I have seen these things play out. What was set up by Sarah was a fantastic piece and a dialogue for us to start with. And again, money didn't come into play. Champion got the higher scores, and then afterwards we found out that Champion came in for less money for parents and also more money for the district. So that's the way it was.
Well, I hope you got the message in my communication that those are the rates that I share with you that are in that letter that people are paying right now.
Yep.
Okay? And they're far, far less than I think what's in the RFP. So,
Well, the RFP included, and we had conversations with everybody about what would be allowed and what wouldn't be allowed, and they went over those pieces with us. So, part of it was from conversations that we had in the past to make sure that parents were taken care of, and I'm sure they will be. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn this back over to you because there was still a piece Sarah was going to do with the RFP.
Sarah, Ms. Hickey's going to provide us with a continued update of where we are, where we stand in the process.
So on June 6th, an open meeting, the school committee voted unanimously to enter into a 3-year contract with KCE Champions. We're in the process of working out the particulars of the contract, and that will come to the school committee to be signed. And we're in the process of scheduling a meet and greet where Champions can welcome families in and talk about their program and actually introduce what they do and who they are to the parents they'll be serving.
Can you let us know when the meet and greet is going to be in case we want to pop in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that particular piece? Before we go, I do want to make a comment to Mr. Oakley. Mr. Oakley, as I said, but I want to restate it again. In no way, shape, or form did I find what you wrote on your Facebook as being offensive or impugning anybody. I appreciate that you put out there, essentially, in my mind, the facts of what happened. And as you know, you witnessed all of the proposals. You were also there witnessing the idea that the proposals were done before anyone had an opportunity to look at money whatsoever.
Right.
I don't want to walk away from this meeting without saying that I I can't disagree with Mr. Materano anymore, that I don't think there was impugning in that particular.
I'd go a step further and say, thank you for getting the information out to people. That was a reiteration of what had occurred the previous night, if it was Friday, that when we had our meeting. I mean, that was exactly what we went through. You even talked about the process. It was thoroughly discussed. We met for an hour that night, and unfortunately, some people don't get a chance to see it. You summed it up in 2 paragraphs.
And I would also say, I know Mr. Rowe was not present at our meeting that Thursday night. Mr. Rowe and I had a conversation the very next morning because he asked me what had happened, and I went over, I got to say, probably close to word for word what you just outlined with Mr. Rowe, to let him know that that was the reason we made things. And he and I had not had a conversation previously about what went down as far as how the board vote, had gone through that process. So I did want to say that with you.
Sure. And Mr. Chair, if I could just say, I think I probably speak for all of us and everyone in town that the why is an important piece to the community. And I think anyone that read what I had posted with a rational mind would just see it as facts. And we sat here in a public meeting and saw the scores, the cost to families, cost to districts. It's exactly what I said. So I'm sorry that they feel that way. I hope they understand that there was no negativity meant. It was all information sharing, and that was it.
And, I also want to, it's important to me to sort of spell out some of the process so people understand. We were extraordinarily hardcore, and Sarah, much so, was sort of the leader of being hardcore in the fact that we had made it clear when people sat down with us that they had submitted all their documents at that time. So under no circumstances could we take anything, because they were supposed to be due to us by a certain amount of time. And that what we were really doing was listening to their presentation and then going over their document and asking questions based on what they had presented us. And I'm not going to get into why people scored the way they were, but I will add, because I think it's very important to note, that there were several questions asked of the why that they didn't have answers to us for, and said that the person who was answering it wasn't there and they wouldn't be able to answer it. And so that made it difficult for us too. And so I think that's part of the reason why you see some of that in the way it played out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might continue with my report.
Please,
If there's no other matter, I would like to invite Dr. Melanie Gates down to the stand, podium, desk, to present an update on her first full year as the Director of Curriculum Instruction, pre-K through 12, in my era anyways. Welcome, Dr. Gates.
Thank you, Superintendent Lynch. Thank you, school committee members. Just pardon me while I switch over to my iPad. Just have a few visuals just to hopefully help us all and help the audience. Hopefully watching at home, follow along, except I can't remember my passcode, so that's always a challenge. Yeah, close. So thank you. I'm going to try to just give some real broad strokes of what's been going on in the world of curriculum, starting back in the summer of 2018 and projecting a bit out for what we anticipate going on in the coming school year. I just want to say I look at curriculum like laundry, and if anybody does laundry, you feel like, oh, wow, laundry's done for the week, and then all of a sudden another load shows up. Curriculum is like that. It's never ending. We're never going to be done with curriculum. It is something that will continuously evolve through many different levers, and I'd like to just share a couple of those levers with you. One that is a great driving force for us is our strategy for continuous district improvement. And the strategic objective of culture of innovation and achievement really speaks intensely to curriculum. The last piece that perhaps isn't so curriculum focused is in A4, where it's primarily focused upon the facility. But much of the work that we have in motion and will be moving forward with in the future is grounded in achieving these strategic priorities of having a vertically aligned curriculum, creating more personalized and targeted instruction, and creating more flexible learning opportunities. And I think you'll see some of that in the actions that have taken place thus far. Curriculum doesn't just lie in that area as well. It also focuses in on our culture of excellence that I think we've been working on cultivating the growth mindset for our students and staff through our approach with curriculum and instruction, and as well as fostering teacher leadership opportunities as designated by B4. And then we wouldn't be doing our part if we didn't also pay heed to the need to focus on our culture of well-being. And as you'll see as we get into some of the presentation tonight, we'll be working on creating opportunities to support social emotional learning, supporting positive student behaviors and self-advocacy. So I wanted to make sure to pay credence to the strategy for continuous district improvement that's guiding our work. So in the summer of 2018, I kind of inherited these curriculum projects. Some were ones that I had my hands in, but most of it were items that had already been put in motion. We had launched in the work of developing science curriculum maps across the elementary level. We're proud to say that we do have curriculum maps developed across really K-12 at this point, but the summer of 2018 focused in on the elementary level. Also in that summer, we focused on creating a math performance task team, which just on Monday, I guess it was, that was Tuesday, June 11th, we had a team of teachers who went to Worcester Polytechnic Institute to present as part of the Math and Science Ambassador Program to present the math performance tasks that they had authored. Middleborough was not only featured with our performance tasks, but also the process that we undertook in designing these tasks. It really started from analyzing our data and coming up with areas to which we need to improve and creating engaging opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning with mathematics. So I'm really proud of the group that's done that work. It was led by our math ambassador, who is one of, I believe, 21 or so across the state, and that would be Vicki Miles, who is our high school mathematics department head. Vicki led a team of teachers across grades 4 through 8, and I will pause. I'll try to remember them all, but I know I'm going to end up missing some folks. But we had Christy Goldman, Keely Lombardi from the elementary level, Ashley Reardon, Alexis Stebbins as well from the elementary, and from the middle school, Mike Lapino, Amy Anderson, and Stephanie Woolley were all part of that team, and they did a tremendous amount of work. And we're hoping to continue that theme with math performance tasks. Is a different way to demonstrate your math learning. It's not just I can solve this problem. It's I can solve this problem, I can explain its relevance, and they just tend to be more engaging than just a straight up word problem for kids. We continue with science curriculum revisions at the middle school, continuing to ask more hands-on engagement opportunities for our students, as well as weaving in more with literacy through our claim, evidence, and reasoning framework. Our 8th grade worked on developing their civics curriculum as part of some recent legislation by the state with the rollout of the new history and social science framework. Civics is required within 8th grade, and not only is it required, there's also a nonpartisan civics project that our students must participate in. Last summer also featured a lot of work in common assessment at the high school level, creating common assessments in a newly adopted platform called EdgeElastic, which creates technology-enhanced assessment opportunities for our students to get a little bit of practice in those types of questions in preparation for MCAS. But really, EdgeElastic creates great opportunities for engagement through assessment, and we found that our kids actually kind of like taking some of the assessments through EdgeElastic because it's so much different than just the paper pencil assessments. We can create more unique item types. And that was a focus at the high school, as well as developing our human geography curriculum. And the middle school, we also revised our mathematics curriculum maps, and I will speak more about that moving forward. Continuing with the year in review this school year, there's a lot more that took place, but I just wanted to highlight a few aspects of it. One that's been really important, not just for the elementary level, but for our district, is the literacy initiative that's going on at the elementary. Through our partnership with the Literacy Collaborative out of Lesley University, we have been training cohorts of teachers in our new instructional model for literacy. And it's not just an instructional model, it's really about a belief system regarding teaching and learning and being responsive to the needs of our students through literacy, focused on a skill acquisition and not just a content acquisition or knowing what a specific book is about. It's just gaining skills that any literate person would need to have that really encourages their lifelong learning. We continue to expand our use of Edulastic for common assessments this year, not only at the high school but at the middle school. We use it for our benchmarking here. Just here at the end of the year, our math and science students took their end-of-year benchmarks through this platform. And it's not just about the students taking the assessments, it's about giving teachers data at their fingertips, reports that not only talk about that particular assessment, but the ease of being able to compare multiple assessments over time to see student growth. Because that's really what it's all about, is keeping our finger on the pulse of how our students are growing and learning. We did a lot with learning walks this year. For myself, as well as other members of our administrative team, I felt, as having a background as being a high school chemistry teacher, I really needed to immerse myself more so in elementary education and in particular literacy. So I was able to do that through the support of our administration at the elementary level, as well as our instructional coaches, who are absolutely phenomenal and deserve a shout out, being Carly Paling at MEC. At MKG, we have Colleen Randall and Lori LeBlanc. And at the Berkland, we have Jillian Lakey and Sam Dormady. And they're absolutely awesome, tremendous teacher leaders, and they're really part of what I mentioned in the strategy of empowering teachers in leadership capacities. They are totally an example of what it is that we expect in that area. They not only helped me with literacy learning walks, but they created an opportunity for our middle school English teachers to go down to the elementary to see what literacy instruction looks like. It was very well received by all, and actually the teachers wanted to do more of it. It's just really difficult to finagle about 16 substitutes, because we not only included our English teachers, we included our special education teachers, because we felt that it was vitally important for them to be part of this process. And it was just really eye-opening for all, and I think created a lot of enthusiasm at the middle school level, which we are appreciative of. We also did some math learning walks, and I'm highlighting one that was done by our high school math department head. I only had the opportunity to schedule one for her at the Berkland, but she was able to not only go in to see what math instruction looked like, Vicki wanted to see what literacy instruction looks like, because that is such a large portion of the day at the elementary level. We have a 2-hour literacy block, so what's happening there to cultivate the skills of our learners, and how can that translate into mathematics instruction? Broader picture items that we had worked on this year is the revision of our district curriculum accommodation plan, which is really setting the expectations for teaching and learning for all students. It's the things that every teacher should be doing in order to help students with their diverse learning needs, and just creates the assurances that we expect for all. And we will continue to revise that over the summer with the plan of rolling that out, the revised version, I should say, rolling that out for next year. And we also worked on revising our professional development points system, and just trying to streamline that and make it more efficient. This summer, we've got a lot of curriculum work going on. We're continuing with our work in science at the elementary level. Curriculum maps really just kind of are your scope and sequence of what you're teaching and when. The real details and the meat of the matter come in our units of study, and we'll be harnessing some of our teachers at the elementary level to begin developing the units of study, so that we have clarity on what we expect our students to be able to know, understand, and do. So we're looking forward to that. We're also starting the work in creating thematic units of study. With the elementary day being so jam-packed with a 2-hour literacy block, a 1-hour math block, specialists, recess, lunch, we need to make time for science and history and social science. And we are looking to leverage some of the literacy block to expose our students to content, not as a driver for acquisition of the content, because it's still focused on the literacy skills, but to give them increased exposure to that content, so that when we do have instructional time for science and history, our kids have a bit of a leg up. And we're just excited about that, because I think maybe Mr. Lynch could speak to this better, because he's got a robust experience at the elementary level. I just see kids loving learning about science at the elementary, loving learning about history. So it's really just to fuel that fire and capitalize on it to increase their literacy skills. As you know, we earned 3 more grants for Project Lead the Way for the Berkland, the Good, and another one for the high school. So we have teachers heading off to Worcester Polytech, as well as I think UMass Lowell, this summer for professional development in those various areas. So we're excited about expanding that partnership with Project Lead the Way. We are going to be continuing to revise our mathematics curriculum. Digits was our formally adopted program, and our partnership with Digits is concluding at the end of this school year. Digits served its purpose. It allowed the 9 different math programs at the middle school to come down into one. So we were able to create grade level curriculum, increase collaboration amongst our grade level teachers, and give them that common vehicle with the program to do so. Because of that experience, we feel fully confident in being able to develop our own homegrown curriculum, much like that we have at the high school. And I think if you look at our high school performance over the last several years, you've seen nothing but our scores go up, not just achievement, but student growth percentile as well. And we want to have that same effect here at the middle school. So we are going to continue revising our mathematics curriculum here at the middle school to make it homegrown, and we'll be doing so through the support of a mathematics consultant. And we really couldn't think of anyone better to do this than our own math ambassador, Miss Vicki Miles. Vicki has spent the majority of her career teaching middle school math. She's involved on the middle school, actually 7th grade MCAS assessment committee. She's been doing that for many, many years. She's actually going to be transitioning into a 10th grade standard setting committee this coming year because she wants to just increase her knowledge in that area. Vicki is not only a phenomenal mathematics instructor, a wonderful leader at the high school, but she is terrific at delivering professional development, and she's got a great amount of experience in doing so, focused in mathematics curriculum assessment, and really focused on student engagement. If you ever get a chance to go into Vicki's room, you'll always see those kids engaged in something new. She's always coming up with some new hands-on approach with math, and we'd be fools to not take advantage of her skills. So in supplement to what she is already doing in her capacity at the high school, she will be taking on some additional work, not just at the middle school, but she'll also be supporting some professional development at the elementary next year as we look at enhancing our math workshop model as well as our approach with guided mathematics, which is really working with small groups and individuals and getting to build upon their conceptual understanding of math through responding to the student that you're working with, not just teaching the problem on the page, but responding to the student's needs. There's a new history and social science framework, which Mr. Rowe, you're a history teacher, I do believe, so you're very familiar with this. We're taking a bit of a measured approach to our implementation of the new framework. We're starting at the secondary level. We will begin this summer by writing curriculum maps so we can kind of see how everything lays out over the course of time for each school, at the high school being semesterized with 90 days of instruction, and the middle school being 180. So we're going to begin by looking at our curriculum maps, and that work will be facilitated by our history and social science department leaders, Mr. Matthew Osgood and Mr. Don Rothmich. So we're excited about that. Ms. Jackie Mae Beaton will be revising or creating the AP psychology curriculum. We have a need to revise our high school biology curriculum in response to what we were seeing with some of our MCAS data. One of our teachers at the high school, Ms. Tara Cardoza, just felt that our curriculum needed to change in 2 units, being cells and cellular transportation as well as evolution. So she will be embarking upon that. College Board does from time to time change requirements with AP classes, and they have changed some of the approach with environmental science. So Mr. Alan Harris will be working to modify his curriculum in response to that, mainly in the area of problem solving. Prior to, I don't believe you were able to use a calculator on AP environmental science, and now that they're using calculators, it kind of changes the approach to problem solving with AP environmental. We'll be enhancing our digital art curriculum at the high school, which is exciting. With the preparation of moving into the new high school and having increased access to technology, we need to begin that curriculum work now so that when we enter the new high school, we're hitting the ground running. So we'll be undergoing that work. And this summer, I hope to finally finalize, and I don't want to say finalize it because, again, curriculum just is never final, but just to create some consistency of vision and expectations with curriculum through creating a curriculum guidebook that outlays what our philosophy is, what our expectations are, as well as creating a curriculum renewal cycle, which is needed for the district, but is also needed in support of our upcoming NEASC accreditation, which I think is in 2024 off the top of my head. So we want to get that in motion and have it something that's just not in paper, but something that when NEASC is interviewing folks, they can speak to organically because it is part of what we have and what we do. And in the coming year, we're continuing to expand our rollout of the Elementary Literacy Initiative. The Memorial Early Childhood Center had a bit of a slower rollout with this initiative, and they are taking on many more teachers into this second cohort. So MEC, as well as the primary grades at MKG and HBB, so that will cover K through 2, they will be entering into their second cohort. So cohort 1 will be going into their second year of training as well as coaching, and there are specific requirements for each year of PD as well as coaching hours. The grades 3, 4, 5 will actually have 3 cohorts going. We'll have one cohort that's in year 3, which is kind of in like a maintenance phase, where it's really just focused in on coaching. And the other 2 cohorts will continue to receive professional development and coaching simultaneously. So that's a great amount of work that will be undertaken. We will be implementing Project Lead the Way modules at the elementary. We have 2 teachers heading off to Worcester in July, Mrs. Mary Smith at MKG and Mrs. Eva Crawford at HBB, who will be participating in that training. Following the training, we're going to meet over the summer and talk about what is best for our schools in implementing the curriculum. And we're excited about that because I think hopefully you've heard some good things about biomedical science and engineering at the high school and the enthusiasm and opportunity that that's given to our kids. We want to be able to expand that down to the elementary and, hey, what's wrong with a little bit more STEM in their lives, you know? We will be creating a literacy leadership team at the middle school. And that will look at what our current practices are, what best practices are, and how we can best align to how our students are coming out of the elementary and continuing to propel our students based upon the success that the elementary has had. We will be using time during the school year to continue our work with the revision of the middle school math curriculum, as well as the revising of the secondary level curriculum for history and social science. So we'll leverage our PLC, or our professional learning community time, as well as the given professional development time. We'll be rolling out our second course in the 4-course sequence for biomedical science and engineering, and we're really excited about that. The biomedical science is just such a cool program. This first year, they really kind of learned just about the basic principles of biomedical science, and next year, the course goes really in depth into the human body, and I think it's called Human Body Systems is the name of that course. And we did recently purchase some materials out of the grant funds that were available, and just some of the things that they were buying, that we were purchasing, are things that kids typically only have access to at college. You know, they're going to have access to digital micropipettes. I didn't see one of those, I think, till I was in graduate school. So it's pretty cool that our kids are getting that experience, because I know when I taught freshman chemistry at UMass Dartmouth in my master's program, kids that came in with those excellent hands-on skills in lab just far exceeded academically because they had more confidence in the equipment that they were engaging with. So I think we're giving our kids a leg up in that regard. We will be implementing the computer science pathway at the high school with the first course called Computer Science Essentials, which is kind of a primer course for AP computer science. We will be embedding social emotional learning throughout the district through a partnership with a program called Character Strong. We are adopting it across the district. The adoption of it varies a little bit by level of school. The elementary will also not only have Character Strong as a resource, but they will be utilizing the responsive classroom framework and embedding the toolkit that Character Strong provides, which is a social, emotional, and character building program, to which myself, Mr. Lynch, Mr. Thomas, Mr. Brannigan, and Mrs. Lyons, we went to a full-day PD out in Shrewsbury back in May, I think it was. We've reflected on it quite often, and we all felt that it was some of the best PD we've had in a long time. And we can't wait to deliver that to our secondary level teachers come August 28th, I believe, and embedding it throughout our district. I think it's going to be something great for everyone, students and staff alike. And really the big focus for me, and it's not just a goal for this coming school year, but it's to make sure that our curriculum is a mirror for our students so that they can see themselves in their curriculum, particularly as our community is becoming more diverse. If our kids can't connect with the literature that they're being exposed to, how are we then motivating them as a learner? But also creating our curriculum to be a window to the world, to give our kids access to things that they might not see in our nearby community. So that's an overarching goal that will continue forevermore. There's a lot more work that will be done, but those are some of the, really just the major focus points, curriculum-wise for the coming year, that I think will help us actualize our mission to foster a culture of excellence within every student in every classroom every day. Happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Chair, that was an excellent report. I loved everything on it, especially the curriculum work. Having just gone through the new NEASC accreditation process at my own school, Mr. Brannigan will owe you a lot when it comes to the new NEASC process you'll be going through in just a couple of years. Looking at all that's a ton of work, and I'm glad it was awesome that you named all the teachers that are helping you with that. What do you feel is probably the biggest challenge with curriculum coming up over the next year? Because the Project Lead the Way stuff, to me, is just impressive to see how that's rolling out and that impact it's having. But what do you think is the biggest challenge that you're going to go through next year?
My lack of patience. I'm just going to be candid. Having been here for 17 years as an employee, I won't include the years as a substitute teacher and student. I just want us to be in a better place curriculum-wise. I think some of our history of dramatic changes in curriculum leadership have not allowed us to have a consistent vision for what curriculum means in Middleborough. And, you know, I want to be able to instill confidence amongst our teachers as to what curriculum means and have confidence about that curriculum is going to be attended to. I think back to when I first became an administrator in 2012, and we hadn't even begun looking at the 2011 curriculum frameworks in English, language arts, and mathematics. We didn't have anybody minding the store. So, you know, teachers' days are very busy. So the bigger picture things that are rolling out for the state are not necessarily what's in the forefront of our teachers' minds. We need to have that support to be able to keep guiding us in the right direction. So for me, it's a little bit of patience in not wanting all of this curriculum done in our adopted formats and having it, you know, readily available for all to see. But I think a little bit of it is going to be making sure that our curriculum is viable for all students, making sure that it is aligned across grade levels. You know, the curriculum frameworks spell out what is occurring at each grade level, and I know that those teams spend time making sure that the skills transition from one grade level to the next. But our curriculum has to be more than what the standards is. It has to be our understanding of what the standards mean, how we are providing opportunities for our students to acquire that content and skill, how are we assessing it, not to just assess it, but to really progress monitor to make sure our students are continuing to grow. And it's, I mean, I just think curriculum in general can be overwhelming because it is so vast. I don't want to view curriculum just as what's written on a piece of paper. It needs to be what's written on a piece of paper, what's happening in the classroom, and having the ability to respond to the needs of our students that we are currently serving.
Thank you.
Yes, I do want to say one thing, and first of all, I want to thank you for your work on curriculum.
Thank you.
Because I think too many times when we think about our students, and you know, Sarah puts it up there when we look at who DESE gives us as like districts, okay? And, you know, these are our like districts to view ourselves against. You know, I just spent Monday and Tuesday at UNH for orientation, and that's not who we should consider ourselves against. I sat with parents from Wayland, from Brookline, from Harvard, from any place that you would call a very good school. And those who our children are competing against because they're looking for slots in exactly the same school. And so when we look at graduation, we have kids going everywhere from Ohio State to last year doing a dual program with Harvard and MIT. Our kids are not fighting for slots in Bridgewater and fighting for slots in the local community schools. They're fighting for slots in national schools, and I think we have to look at that, and our curriculum has to adhere to that so those kids are ready for that. And I really appreciate the work that you were doing and Paul is doing. But the one thing that I would like to see us push, in my mind more than any, that I don't think we push enough, is the ability for our parents to take those low-cost college courses that they can when their child reaches a junior year, and they can apply them to their grades if they do well. And so it's an opportunity for them to take a chance more than once, a couple times if they want, and not have it hurt their GPA. So that was one thing I would say.
Well, I think the high school's done a great job at creating some college pathways, college-based experiences for our students that not only yield high school credit, but also college credit. And I think there's further opportunity there. There's a little bit of a movement in the state with Project Lead the Way of getting those courses approved for college credit. Plymouth already has that in place. They have partnerships, I believe, with Cape Cod Community College and Mass Maritime. Project Lead the Way themselves are starting to do that work, so we're going to kind of try to follow their lead. Plymouth was the trailblazer, and now Project Lead the Way in Massachusetts is starting to follow that direction, and I anticipate us having that opportunity for our kids. Because Project Lead the Way is kind of similar to AP. There's this course, and then there's a standardized end-of-course assessment. So it allows our students to be compared on a national level, and that's what I love about AP and Project Lead the Way, is the outcome of that is not just based upon what Middleborough's expectations are. It's an expectation that all students have who experience those programming. So I think it allows our students to be more equitably compared to others. And our students excel in those regards. And they excel within our own curriculum, but there are some factors that I think if they were to look at a transcript from Middleborough versus a transcript from Wayland or Weston, it's evaluated differently by colleges. So we're doing our part to try to make sure that when Middleborough is compared to these other districts, Middleborough is the one that's rising to the top because of the quality of our programming. And we're getting there. We're chipping away at it.
Megan, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you did, but also including the teachers in this. You listed, I don't know, like 15, 20 teachers that have helped you do all of this.
There's a lot more too.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
Honestly, I could name everybody, because if this had to be on me, but it wouldn't be done. The heavy lift is really done by the teachers.
That speaks a lot to your leadership, where you're not trying to do everything, and you're going to these teachers and you're asking for their input and asking for their help. So I really just appreciate that.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I mean this to not be disrespectful when I say what the definition of a good leader is: someone who selects and chooses people that have more knowledge in a specific subject matter than they do themselves, and you team them together. That's what a great leader is. So I'll start with that. So I don't want this to sound bad. It sounds good. I think it sounds good. You started this whole entire process, explanation and presentation tonight with the plan for continuous district improvement, which I love. You typically do that almost every presentation you do. It always goes back to it. It gives you the root of where you, and I appreciate that. I'm very excited about, and actually Mr. Rowe and I were talking before we started about the civics piece getting added back in. If that's the one thing that, and a group of friends that I have that they always complain about is, we don't teach civics like we used to. Well, we did, but it's not the civics that they were thinking they wanted. But I like the idea of a nonpartisan civics class. I love it.
That's I forget what the act of I forget what
Yeah.
the name of the act is, but that's the
Exactly,
language
yeah.
in it. And
Yep.
And I mean, and that's the position that a public school has to have.
Absolutely. But I think it's good because with what's going on, the current conversations that are going on in this country, people need to discuss this. I myself had a sit down with someone who has an exact opposite view of what's going on in the country the other night, on Monday night, and it was a great conversation. We got up, we shook hands, we laughed, we don't have that anymore. We have this discord going. And maybe this type of a class these classes will help us start to talk again. My biggest thing that I'm worried about is the math curriculum at the middle school and how that's going to all come together. Is it coming together already? I mean,
It is, actually.
okay.
I mean, it's pretty much there.
Okay. That was my only concern, really.
Even independent of digits, I had curriculum maps, and we wrote units of study based upon the standards, and digits was just the common vehicle to which we were delivering our curriculum. So it's all there, but we need to refine it, and we need to enhance it by the addition of math performance tasks, revising our common assessments to make sure that the data is telling us what we need to know. And I really put all the faith in the world in Vicki with her ability to create meaningful assessments that allow us to have data that helps us identify what next steps we need to take for individual students. So I'm fully confident in her abilities. We have pretty much the backbone of that curriculum already done, and it's actually what we've been doing. It's just we don't have digits as the vehicle to deliver it.
I appreciate, that was the one item out of all, the most difficult task to me, and like you said, with Ms. Miles on top of it, I feel the same way you do. I'm not as worried about it, but if someone said, I'm taking away what we did last year, is there something else ready to go? And we're pretty much ready to go.
We are ready to go. And, in addition to Vicki doing this work,
And all the teachers.
we engage our teachers as well. We have a teacher identified for each grade level and/or course. So as you may know, at the middle school, starting in 7th grade, we create an opportunity for advanced mathematics. So in 7th grade, students have the ability to take pre-algebra, and then in 8th grade, algebra. So we have 2 course offerings at 7th and 8th. So we have recruited onto our team Mr. Mike Lapino for 6th grade, Mrs. Amy Anderson for the revision of 7th grade, Miss Megan Adams to revise pre-algebra, because she really she's written the curriculum to date, but she's got to now revise it knowing that digits isn't the vehicle. 8th grade will be done by one of our newer teachers, Catherine Tierney, who has been a tremendous gain for our district. And Algebra 1 for the middle school will follow the high school Algebra 1 curriculum, because Algebra 1 should be Algebra 1 regardless of where you take it. Right. The one twist that we have to be careful about here at the middle school is our students take the 8th grade MCAS. They don't take an Algebra 1 MCAS. So we have to be intentional in making sure that the 8th grade standards that are not covered in our pre-algebra course are woven into our algebra curriculum. And Steph Woolley will be working on that. And Steph has actually been on the 8th grade assessment development committee for several years as well. So great benefits of the expertise of many of our teachers that we will be leveraging.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's awesome to see how much is going on. It warms my heart, obviously, to see the Project Lead the Way stuff, and the fact that our kids are going to be holding, like you said, the digital micropipette that at the place I work at, that postdocs and junior faculty at Harvard are using, is pretty exciting. The senior faculty, they don't touch pipettes; they just write grants. But but that's really exciting, and I'm really glad to see that that's expanding and going forward. But as I do probably with every single person that presents, there's something that they say that I don't know much about. And I was wondering, I think I understand what Learning Walks is, but could you just talk a little bit about what that means?
Sure. So Learning Walks, there's a technical definition of it, but what we experienced this year wasn't so much aligned to that technical definition. It was really an opportunity to get in and see what's going on in classrooms and talk about it. I went into classrooms starting in the fall with a focus of trying to understand what literacy instruction looks like at the at the elementary school. I wanted to better understand what Readers and Writers Workshop was about. So myself, Derek Thompson, I know Carolyn Lyons came once, the instructional coaches, we would have scheduled visits into classrooms where the teachers would have shared with us what's going on in the lesson and what's their desired outcomes. So we could see, okay, this is what you're planning and this is what's going on. What does all of this mean? So really selfishly, it was for me to learn, but I think it helped just increase the collaboration amongst myself and our elementary principals, as well as getting Carolyn Lyons out and seeing education through a broader lens than her focus with special education being part of that. but just, giving her an opportunity to just see all sorts of instructional opportunities. So it really was just scheduled visits in the classrooms, knowing what it is that we were intended to see, observing it, having time to then debrief and talk about what we saw. We would invite the teachers in afterwards as well, because sometimes your best laid plan goes awry because all of a sudden this kid has a different need, and our job is to respond to our students, not to just say, okay, well, you don't know that, but I'm just gonna teach this anyway, whatever to you. That's not what we're doing anymore. If a kid has a need, we need to be able to respond to it in that moment. So it was really just an opportunity to talk about teaching and learning in a formalized capacity. Now, if it were a true learning walk, we'd be going in with a specific focus of saying just something kind of, low-hanging fruit of, we're going in to see what teachers have posted for their objectives in the classroom. How many teachers have them posted? What type of objective is it? Is it measurable? So you're going in with a specific task to almost collect evidence related to it, and then you debrief it. Versus this, it was a little bit broader in scope.
Thanks for explaining.
I wouldn't be channeling my inner Mo Franco if I didn't say it, but this is how when we talk about vertical integrating the entire K through 12, by going in and bringing people down and move, that's what we need more. When you made the comment about 2012, when you moved up to an administrative role, I couldn't agree more. I'd been here for a year, and I had sat here and said to myself, we were going, and even then, we still weren't moving. We were moving, but we weren't moving correctly, I don't think, at that point. But at least we were moving. And I'm so much more excited. I mean, the positive piece right now, that what I'm hearing and what's going on.
Thank you.
Dr. Gates, before we wrap up, since we're at the end of the year, I do want to thank you, not only for the work that you do here, but you also helped us out this year with the policies, and also with Brian and Sarah with negotiations. And so I want to thank you for those two things. It has been a pleasure. And I know you're still working on that with us, but I think it's important to note that it isn't, someone in your position is not just bound by one thing. The superintendent has you doing quite a bit of things across the board, and time and time again, you constantly step up and pick up extra things for us, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm thankful for the opportunity to learn more. The opportunity to participate in negotiations has been interesting, and definitely something beneficial for me. Just even personally to just understand how that process unfolds. And, we're a team. Everybody's got to pick up and do their part, even when it sometimes might not be your part. There's work that needs to get done, and everybody is committed to achieving our common goal directed by our mission. So sometimes it requires doing something outside the job description, but at the end of the day, it's what makes a difference in the lives of our students and our faculty and staff. So, in it to win it.
Is that part of your job description that says anything else?
Yes, yeah. And that's fine. I just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And I don't mean punches, but.
Thank you, Dr. Gates.
Yes, no.
And the
thank
pre-K through 12 position has been a tremendous asset to the district, as you can see, in terms of that vertical and horizontal coordination. And Melanie in the position has been a tremendous asset, personally and professionally. She has the ability to recognize some of the things that she's less strong at, and she mentioned that this evening about the elementary schools and getting in there and digging in and going into the classroom and seeing it and hearing it and learning it with the principals and getting explanations. And I was sat down with one of the walkthroughs with Dr. Gates and asking Derek Thompson, the principal, about, tell me more about that. And then they came to talking about summer curriculum work, and that started planning that probably was in January or February. So just that sort of universal appeal, that universal look that she has in the district now, I think is so much more effective in this district, pre-K through 12. So, and that vertical, and transitions in this district have always been a difficult thing. We do not want a child going from 5th grade at MKG or HPB to the middle school and saying, this isn't ELA class. What is this class? So we want it to, the transitions from one school to the other are important and essential, and part of the plan that we've outlined, the strategy for district improvement, includes those transitions, and they're vital. And having a person in that position, such as Dr. Gates has, is very important, essential to the successful implementation of that plan. So thank you, Dr. Gates.
Thank you for the opportunity, everyone. Have a great night.
Very much.
Group. And Dr. Gates, I know your husband is home, not feeling well, and you have guests coming in, so please, you're welcome to head out.
Yeah, I did have the opportunity to step out and have dinner. My sister and her family came up, so I got to see my 4-year-old nephew, soon-to-be 1-year-old nephew, and my, I guess, 17-year-old niece. She flew up from Atlanta to, my family now lives in Delaware. She flew up to Atlanta, flew from Atlanta to Delaware to meet up with my family, and then they all drove up. So they're here for the weekend. Nothing like a 4-year-old birthday party to get the weekend going, so I'm looking forward to that, so,
Great,
thank
great
you.
stuff, thank you. Report, Mr. Chair, I think we dropped in the box, the Reed's quarterly report overview. I'm going to try to put these in, obviously, when they arrive, and I think it's important that you know there's a couple of things that are going on. One is that the Reed's is looking to build or rebuild a facility, and it's important that you know that they were looking to build, I was president of the board of directors this year, they were looking to build about a little bit over a $30 million building, and that plan did not go through in terms of being able to get financed. So they are also looking at, actually looking right now at I believe it's the Travelers Insurance Building right at the Rotary. It's a vacant building, and possibly looking at that space to possibly build classroom space. How it affects us, their goal is to get students out of the School Street School. So that will affect us in terms of having a building that might be vacant down the road. So just so you know, these reports, I'm going to make sure they're in quarterly so you can see what's going on at Reed's. If you ever have any questions about what goes on at Reed's, please ask me. I do attend the 95% of the board meetings each year, and I'm certainly in tune with what's going on there. I just signed the executive director's contract this morning. We were able to bargain with her last week and complete that, so.
Speaking of that, Ms. Lynch, now that you mention that, it just brings me up. Some of the committee, we may want to schedule at some point this summer a walkthrough of both the Lincoln Lynch School and School Street, because some of these members, I bet, have not been in there. I will say this, we've done a really good job of keeping up with the maintenance and making sure, but I think it would be good for people to be able to walk in there and just see how it's used, and, that way you guys get a sense. So we'll try to do that just have some morning this summer.
And it's a bit off the agenda, but I did get a chance to meet with the town manager and the president of Massasoit the other day to talk about the future of our program there, and explain to the new president, the incoming president, how important that program is to us and how important that building is to us, and our students in that program. We have students taking classes in there, and it's an important piece of the downtown also, and the town manager was able to articulate that.
Massasoit has expressed to us in the past, too, that they'll be looking for more space at various times, so the School Street School may offer them the more space they need. Who
That's
knows?
certainly a
But I
possibility down
just
the road.
raised that as a possibility.
Correct. So, I wanted to mention the administrative retreat for the summer. It's August 6th and 7th. I would ask that on July 25th, if you plan on attending, you're all invited to lunch on both days at noontime. It's held at the Boston Tavern, and we're in the Abigail Adams room, so you're certainly invited to those dates. We usually have the fire chief and the police chief attend. Town manager is invited, and I think last year he was on vacation that week, but you're all invited to that. It's a chance to sit down with all the administrative team, get a chance to sit down at a table and talk with them about what's going on in schools and what's going on at the retreat, et cetera. So you're welcome to that. On the Thursday afternoon, we have a school law update afterwards, and so if you want to plan on sticking around for an afternoon, you're certainly welcome to do that on that Thursday, August 7th. So please, that's available to you. We'd like you there. The chair is usually there. Other members have come in the past, and I would certainly make sure that that invitation is open to all school committee. So, and that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
As MSBA update, just a couple of things. We had our MSBA meeting yesterday. Everything's still on schedule, under budget. We were starting to do some change orders. Some of the change orders come at the idea of, well, we've looked and seen, the contractor looks and says, for example, there's a roof pipe that is not in the size that we wanted. It's actually in a smaller size that'll work, so it means a reduction in money. And there's a couple things that we recently voted to increase money on. As people may be aware, we did a lot more extensive tree work over by the trailer park because a lot of those trees were bad. And so we took down a lot of those. We actually took down some on their property at their request, and we were fine with that in sort of the good neighbor policy, if you will. And so we actually just approved for additional resources to be spent on additional trees. So when the school is functional, there'll be a much better buffer there between the school and the trailer park. Those trees will actually be going in this August to give more time for them to grow. We as a committee decided to go with the taller trees and bigger bushes. You can essentially buy them, for lack of better terms, let's say a 3-year-old tree, a 5-year-old tree, and a 6-year-old tree, or an 8-year-old tree. So we went with the older because they were bigger and bushier and
Wasn't it, Mr. Chair, wasn't that much more
Right.
expensive to have the mature, the more mature trees? One of the issues that they had with the trees that were there is the soil conditions that were there were horrible. And they even had a tree this past winter fall down on one of those manufactured homes. So that's why they had to come out. They had to come out, or we would have potentially had serious issues in the future because of all the work that we were doing. But when they build that back up, we'll have good soil conditions at that point, and we'll be planting in that, which is the key to it. Is they brought it down to subgrade, and when they build it back up, we'll have good soil for good root growth, which is, to me, was a big part of it. Is we're gonna have safe trees, and then we'll have a good, as long as we have a decent growing season this fall, we'll get through that, and we'll have healthy trees for, we have a 3-story building going in next to some homes, so we'll give them buffer and us more buffer as well. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
A couple additional pieces that came up was the G&E instituted a new rule that there would have to be a fencing structure around your main gas going into the building. So that is a rule that took place, I believe, in May. So we had to adapt to that and make some changes. And then in doing some of the work out back, they found that there was a potential sinkhole that was actually a pipe that had some damage, and they reviewed the pipe, and the pipe was damaged in one location. So we had to correct and fix some of the old work there. But
The main draining pipe for the entire current high school, there was a crack in the pipe, which was causing a sinkhole because the material was going down through into the pipe. It was about 70 feet from the head wall, the existing head wall. What they did was they actually ran a TV camera through the pipe from end to end to make sure there were no other issues, and then they're gonna repair it. So it's better because that's staying in use for our future school too. So it worked out perfectly. Better to have it now than after they built the fields or such.
And the good part is, I mean, if you think about it, because of all the digging and everything like that, everything's getting looked at and reviewed. And so, we were considerably under budget. In addition, we did have contingency fees built into the budget. So we're well within, we're nowhere near. And, the expectation, as we've been told, is we'll probably see anywhere from 100 to 300 change orders in a time by the time we hit, just because of things going on and happening. So, but just to let you know about some of them. What we'll do probably at some point is we'll just give you a list of change orders that you can see that are going on, so you can take a look at them.
And yesterday's invoice was for $1.9 million for the month of May.
Exactly. It starts. Yeah, I know, it was your fault. So any questions about that? Again, everything's on budget. There are now 3 views of the backfield, Brian, that are going on that
Two
website.
views. One is the building going up, and the other one is the field, so there are 2.
So you can check that out anytime you want. So that's great. Next item is consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening?
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. More than likely, I'll have the superintendent evaluation done for the next agenda. One of the things I'm going to include, and I was waiting, is obviously one of his goals is the after-school activity, so I will include that in the piece. So we'll all be done with that. I wanted to check to make sure, as we all know, generally speaking, we want one meeting in July and one meeting in August, and I am proposing that meeting be July 25th and August 22nd. Related to that, I also wanted to see if there were, sometimes we do it a little earlier, and I wanted to see if that worked for people. I think in the past, we might have done 6:30, if that works. I don't know if it does, and I'm just.
So moved.
Well, let's, I know people are checking, so, and I know Greg's not here either, so I just wanted to, well, why don't we do it this way? Why don't you get back to me on the time frame? But does the 22nd and, the 25th and 22nd make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If that becomes a problem, let me know. Are you on vacation all those times? Oh, okay. Well, okay, we'll check that out, because I actually, my wife just said I might be on vacation at that time too. So we can work that out.
And 6:30 is not a bad thing. I do work till 5 up in Braintree this summer, so.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. I can get here for that without a problem.
So if that works for people, we'll try to get a little earlier, but if it doesn't, that's understandable too. For MASC, I put down the Summer Institute again and the joint conference. The thing about the joint conference is people are interested, if they could let me know within the next week, only because you don't necessarily have to commit to it, but there is if you buy by the end of June, there's a price reduction as opposed to if you go into July. So if people know they're interested, I know the superintendent and I will be going. And so if you're interested, let me know. You might be in New Zealand again, I don't know.
I am very interested, but that falls right over my anniversary, and we usually try to do a little something, so.
Not this
But
year.
I'll figure it out and I'll let you know.
Next is the third reading of the policy, wellness policy update that was presented to us.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
As we've finished our wellness policy review for the third reading, I'd move that we approve the wellness policy.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, thank you. We had talked before about adding a foster care amendment to the Mass Association of School Committees meeting. I'm gonna work on that, and I hopefully will have it for you all by next meeting. Under other, we have a couple of donations, Stop and Shop Rewards and Bay State Textiles. With that, does
Mr.
anything?
Chair.
Yes.
On our next meeting, are we going to discuss the potential for scheduling, for schedules, to schedule discussions for like the high school and the middle school, and what might be going on at the next meeting, maybe?
Yes, that is perfect. Yeah, because we should be finished with the negotiations by that day, and so we can go over things. I did mention to everybody at the last meeting, I believe.
I just figure we might want to put it on our agenda, start talking about it.
Yep, no, that's
And what I'll
perfect.
do is, if I'm at the selectmen's meeting the week before that and it's on our agenda, I'll mention that we will be discussing it at our meeting on the 27th.
Anything else anyone want to bring up before? I do want to say one thing before I go, just to let the committee know. There was a letter presented to us by Mr. Monterano tonight. It is primarily addressed to me. I intend to respond to it, and I will send that response, a copy of the response to all of you.
Okay.
And that being said, the chair would entertain a motion.
I'm the new president of Middleborough Special Education Advisory Council.
Come on down.
I don't have a speech or anything.
That's okay.
But I look forward to introducing our new board members, and we have lots of good things to talk about and questions to ask, and a lot to learn. So I hope to be here at every meeting or have somebody come in my stead, and this is me.
The one thing I'll say that we ask you would do, and I know Carolyn tries to send to us, but if you have something going on, all our emails are on the website. If you could send it to all of us, because we're more than happy to help promote it at school committee meetings. And depending on what it is, Brian or I try to attend most of the selectmen's meetings, and we would
Okay.
also try to bring it up there. I know in the past, for example, you guys have run like sort of right before the end of the year, there was that outdoor activity with bouncy houses and things like that. And, so there was and I know you run a lot of talks for parents and things like that. And so anything like that we can put out.
Yeah, we're working on the schedule right now for the upcoming year, which is basically solidifying dates, locations, and times, and it's wildly painful to get all the schedules together. But I would really like to present that to you over the summer.
Sure.
The locations, we actually have a big speaking event happening on the 10th of October, hopefully right here, probably when you already are having a meeting. So these are, Carolyn and I are trying to iron out everything with the district to make sure we have facilities, so.
Yeah, anything you get like that, just let us know, and we'll make sure we help promote it as best
Okay.
we can. And the other thing too is I should also add that some of us have, like I have a Facebook page for a school committee member, Mr. Oakley does, and other people do, and we can press that out and make sure that's part of it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this does represent a transition from a board that had been there for a while to almost an entirely new board, correct?
An entirely new board.
Entirely new board.
We're
So-
renaming, rebranding, doing everything quite differently, so it's a handful to take on as of right
So
now.
some real new excitement in
Yes.
the world of the
Should be
CPAC.
all new, brand new, come this next school year, so
Great.
hopefully we can get through it all.
Well, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up and joining.
Thank you.
Mr. O.
Just for those at home, this is Shelley Berard. I
Oh,
don't know if anyone heard that, so, yep.
That's great.
thank you.
Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I have brochures that I can pass around, my one thing that I've done recently, so.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the meeting.
Adjourn? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion, hearing none. Before I forget, I should also mention that there will probably be we'll probably run an executive session at next meeting, because we'll talk about where we're at the end of the teachers' negotiations, and I believe we will start negotiations. Greg is gonna meet with me, and we're gonna start negotiations with the secretary. I may, depending on timeframes, you may be working with me more than Brian, because I know Brian has work commitments till 5. If we can push some stuff till later, some of you will work with Brian, but we'll start the process of the summertime, okay? Other than that, so I do have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, and see you in 2 weeks.